Are you putting money into ISAs every year, but watching your savings going nowhere? I would never have built my savings to six figures if I'd listened to the common outdated advice from banks about keeping your money safe. So in this video, I'm going to show you the ISA mistakes that are costing people over £100,000 and the strategy that actually builds wealth faster than you could ever imagine. And by the end, you'll know exactly what ISA mistakes you're making, why cash ISAs are keeping you poor, and where to put your money to maximize your returns whilst avoiding the traps that's keeping everyone else broke. The biggest lie that you've been told by the banks is that cash ISAs are a safe option. The banks won't tell you that with inflation at 4% and cash ISAs paying you 4%, you're actually not making any money. And if you think about other factors like account fees, then you're actually probably losing money. The money that you're putting into a cash ISA today is going to be buying you less in the future. Remember when a Freddo cost 10p? Now they're 30p. That's not because Freddos have gotten better, I actually think they've gotten smaller, but that's because your money has got weaker. And that's inflation, and it's been eating away at cash savings for decades. Don't get me wrong, cash ISAs aren't terrible, but they're just low growth. That makes sense for people who are risk averse or retired and want to preserve their capital rather than chase the growth. But for most of us that are trying to build wealth over decades, sticking to only a cash ISA is a slow path to nowhere. You might think you're being sensible and keeping your money secure, but you're actually slowly going broke the safest way possible. You can think of your money like ice cream coming out of the freezer. Even though it looks like it's staying the same, it's slowly melting away. And the banks aren't stupid either. They're lending your money out at 6%, 8%, sometimes even 15% interest rates. So they're making an absolute fortune just because you don't know any better. The worst part is you don't even need a cash ISA for tax purposes. Most people have a personal savings allowance of £1,000, meaning you can earn £1,000 interest outside of your ISAs completely tax-free anyway. So unless you have at least 25k in savings, you'll be well under the 1k allowance. So if not a cash ISA, then what ISA should you use? The type of ISA that can turn £100 into £386 over 20 years. And 8 out of 10 people have never even considered it. You might have the perception that the stock market is risky and that you can lose everything. And you're right, you can lose money in the short term. But what they don't teach you in school is that there are two types of risk. And most people only see one of them. There's the risk that everyone talks about and the one that you're probably thinking about, which is market risk. Your investments might go down. You might lose 20% in a bad year. It's scary, it makes headlines, and it keeps people awake at night. But there's another risk that's invisible and far more dangerous. And that's inflation risk. The risk that your money loses buying power whilst you're busy keeping it safe. Let me put this into perspective for you. Over the last 30 years, there have been exactly 0 20-year periods where a stock market investment has lost money. That's 0. Even if you'd invested at the worst possible times. Say for instance, right before a crash, you'd still have come out ahead after 20 years. But your cash ISA is buying you less in the future. So which one is actually more risky? It's like being afraid of flying whilst happily getting in your car every day. Flying feels scary because the plane crashes make the news. But statistically, you're far more likely to get hurt whilst you're driving to the airport. Other finance videos might not tell you that a stocks and shares ISA can lose money, but you can. Your capital is at risk and markets can crash. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. I've seen my portfolio drop 30% in a matter of weeks, but over 20 years, the FTSE 100 has averaged 10% annual returns despite multiple crashes, recessions, and crises. But even if you accept that stocks and shares ISA might be worth considering, there's still another trap that catches almost everyone out. How many times have you had these thoughts? I'll start investing when I know more. I'll wait until the market calms down. I'll invest when I have more money. The truth is, there's never a perfect time. People think they need to become Warren Buffett before they can invest a single penny. I've been investing for 10 years and there's always been a reason to wait. Brexit, COVID, inflation, war, elections, there's always something. But if you'd started putting £500 a month into your stocks and shares ISA 10 years ago, even through the Brexit chaos, the pandemic crashes and everything else, you'd have around £85,000 today, instead of just the £60,000 that you put in. Every month that you wait, you're missing compound growth that you're never going to get back. Time in the market beats timing in the market every single time. Picture this, it's your child's 18th birthday. They're about to go to university and you hand them a letter. And inside it says, congratulations, you now have £50,000 to start your adult life. You can only pray that they don't go and spend it on Jaeger bombs. Now, this might sound ridiculous and impossible to you, but it's really not. You just need to do something that 90% of parents never think about. If you have kids and you're not using a junior ISA, you're missing one of the biggest wealth building opportunities available. Even £100 a month can transform their future. A child born today with £100 monthly contributions growing at 8% will have £50,000 by the time they're 18. If they leave that money there and never touch it, they'll have £120,000 by the time that they're 30. If you're sitting there thinking, well, I haven't got £100 a month to spare, but it doesn't have to be this much. Even £25 a month becomes £12,000 on their 18th birthday. And that gives them a massive head start in life. So instead of spending £50 a month on new toys for them when they've got loads already, think about how that money can set them up for the future. But even if you set yourself and your kids up for the future, there is something that can make it all come crashing down. What if I told you that doing absolutely nothing during a market crash will make you more money than 90% of investors? The biggest threat to your wealth isn't the market crashes, inflation, or picking the wrong investments. It's the 30 seconds of panic that you get when you see the market going down. You put money in, you watch it grow, and then panic during a market dip. Reach for your phone to sell everything and pull all the money out. Or the other side of that is that you treat your ISA like a savings account, dipping into it for holidays, car repairs, or Christmas presents. Every withdrawal doesn't just cost you that money. It costs you all of the future growth that money would have generated for years. £5,000 withdrawn from your ISA when you're 30 isn't just £5,000. At 7% growth, that's £53,000 you won't have by the time you retire. That holiday just cost you nearly £60,000. Here's what the banks don't want you to know. Building wealth isn't complicated. First, you need to keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in an easy access savings account for emergencies. This isn't invested, this is just your safety net that's going to stop you from panicking and selling everything if something goes wrong. Then everything else that you got goes into your stocks and shares ISA in a low-cost global index fund. I personally use Vanguard's Global All Cap. It owns thousands of companies across the world, it costs basically nothing per year, and has returned an average of 10% over the last 10 years. Next, you need to set up a direct debit. Put in whatever you can afford, whether that's £50, £100, or £500 a month. Don't check it constantly, don't panic when it drops, just keep feeding it. If you're not sure on what platform to use, then I'll recommend Trading 212 or Vanguard. They're easy to use for beginners and lots of funds have really cheap fees. You don't need fancy strategies or expensive advisors. You need 3 things: a stocks and shares ISA, a boring global index fund, and the discipline to ignore it. Remember, this isn't a get-rich-quick kind of scheme. Some years you will lose money, but the most important thing that you can do is nothing. Keep your direct debits going and buy more shares when they're cheaper. Then sit back and watch your money skyrocket in the future years. But everything I've just told you is completely useless unless you have the funds to invest in the first place. Which is why you need to watch this video here to save £10,000 faster and easier than you could ever imagine.